Some people serve revenge cold. I served mine at my daughter's wedding reception, wrapped in 67 white envelopes that would turn a fairy tale into a nightmare before dessert was served. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. The night a man made the worst mistake of his life by telling me to vanish. Welcome to Tea and Payback, where the tea is hot, the secrets are messy, and karma always finds her way home. Before I go on, just a quick reminder. I share new life stories every day. If you enjoy them, subscribing and liking the video would mean a lot to me. Now sit down, pour yourself a cup of tea, let's continue. My name is Catherine Morrison. I'm 52 years old, and until 3 days ago, I thought I knew exactly who my daughter was. Turns out, we were both strangers to the truth. The library smelled like leather and old money when Derek pulled me aside during the rehearsal dinner. My daughter Lily's fiancé had that smile plastered across his face, the one I'd learned to distrust over the past year. Something about it never quite reached his eyes, like he was performing instead of living. "Catherine, we should talk," he said, closing the heavy oak door behind us. The click of the latch felt ominous, final. I smoothed my dress and waited. 25 years of raising Lily alone after my husband's accident had taught me patience. Derek poured himself whiskey from the crystal decanter, and I watched his hands. They were steady. Whatever he was about to say, he'd rehearsed it. "I'll get straight to the point." He took a long sip, buying time despite his claim of directness. "Lily and I have been discussing our future. We want a fresh start. Clean slate. That's what marriage is," I replied carefully. "A new beginning." "Exactly." His smile widened, but his eyes stayed cold. "Which is why we need you to step back. Permanently." The word hung between us like a blade. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart was suddenly hammering against my ribs. "Step back from what exactly?" Derek set down his glass with deliberate precision. "From us. From our lives. From everything. You know what would make the perfect wedding gift, Catherine? You disappearing. Forever." The audacity of it stole my breath for a moment. This boy, and that's what he was, a 29-year-old boy playing dress-up in expensive suits, had just asked me to erase myself from my only child's existence. "Lily wants this?" I heard myself ask, though some part of me already knew the answer. "It was her idea, actually." Derek's voice dripped with false sympathy. "She's just too kind to tell you herself. But I have no problem being honest. You're suffocating our relationship, Catherine. Constantly interfering, always hovering. We can't build a marriage with you clinging to Lily like she's still 5 years old." My fingernails dug into my palms, but I kept my voice level. "And if I refuse?" He shrugged, casual as discussing the weather. "Then my wife will have to choose between her husband and her mother. I don't think you'll like how that plays out." Derek walked past me toward the door, pausing with his hand on the brass handle. "Sleep on it. Make the right choice tomorrow. For everyone's sake." The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like a gunshot. I stood there in that library, surrounded by my late husband's book collection, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. A middle-aged woman who'd just been told she was disposable, unwanted, a burden her own daughter wanted to discard. But Derek had made a critical miscalculation. He assumed I'd crumble. He assumed I'd disappear quietly, broken and defeated. He didn't know that I'd been making hard choices my entire life. And this one was about to be the easiest decision I'd ever made. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. If Derek Mitchell wanted me gone, I'd grant his wish. But I'd do it my way. The kitchen clock read 2:47 a.m. when I finally sat down with the deed to the lake property. 3 years ago, I'd bought it with life insurance money after burying my husband. Lily had been obsessed with it ever since, posting photos on social media, planning renovations she'd make when it's finally ours, showing friends around like she already owned it. She didn't know the deed was still solely in my name. I opened my laptop and composed an email to Sandra Chun, the real estate agent who'd helped me purchase the property. My fingers moved with surprising steadiness, considering I was about to dismantle my daughter's future in a single message. Sandra, need to list the lake house immediately. Yes, I know the timing is unusual. Price it aggressively. I want it sold by tomorrow afternoon. We'll explain later. Send. The cursor blinked at me like a judgment. I poured another cup of coffee and opened the folder I'd been compiling for 6 months. The one Derek didn't know existed. 6 months ago, I'd noticed inconsistencies. Small things at first. Derek claimed he worked at his father's investment firm downtown. But when I'd stopped by to drop off lunch one afternoon, the receptionist looked confused. Mr. Mitchell? He hasn't been in the office in weeks. Then there were the business ventures he constantly discussed at family dinners. Real estate developments that never materialized. Startup investments that somehow never launched. A consulting practice with clients he could never quite name. So I'd hired someone. Marcus Webb, former FBI investigator turned private detective. He'd spent 6 months following paper trails, interviewing people, documenting everything. What he'd found made my blood run cold. Derek Mitchell wasn't just unemployed. He was a professional predator. For the past 4 years, he'd been running elaborate schemes on friends, family, and anyone foolish enough to trust his charming smile. Investment opportunities that were actually Ponzi setups. Business partnerships that were theft disguised as cooperation. Loans he never intended to repay. I spread the documents across my kitchen table like evidence in a murder trial. Bank records showing Derek had borrowed over $150,000 from various wedding guests. Police reports from 2 previous girlfriends who'd filed restraining orders after discovering his deceptions. A suspended law degree from a school his father had paid to keep quiet about plagiarism. But the most damning evidence? Text messages Marcus had obtained showing Derek bragging to his college roommate about landing the Morrison girl, and how the lake house alone would set him up for years. Once we're married, the mother disappears and everything she owns becomes community property. Easy money. My hands shook as I read his words. This wasn't just about isolating Lily from me. This was about stealing everything I'd worked for, everything my late husband had left behind. Derek wanted me to disappear. He'd get his wish, but not before I burned his entire world to the ground. I picked up my phone and called the caterer. Helen, it's Catherine Morrison. I apologize for the hour, but I need a favor for tomorrow's reception. Helen Barnes had been catering events in our town for 3 decades. She'd handled my own wedding reception back when Reagan was president. Catherine? Honey, it's 3 a.m. The wedding is in 12 hours. What could possibly? I need you to place an envelope at each table setting. Small, white, nothing fancy. I'll deliver them to you first thing tomorrow morning. Silence on the other end. Then, what's in the envelopes? I smiled for the first time since Derek's little speech. Wedding favors. Very personal wedding favors. After Helen reluctantly agreed, I made similar calls to the florist, the photographer, and the string quartet. Each conversation was brief and professional. Nobody questioned the mother of the bride making last-minute adjustments. That was expected behavior. By 5 a.m., my phone was already buzzing with messages from Sandra. Catherine, listing went live an hour ago. Already have 2 cash offers. This property is hot. One buyer wants to close by Monday. Are you sure about this? I was sure about everything now. The envelope I prepared for Lily's table was different from the others. Hers would contain the real estate listing showing the lake house sold to strangers, along with a printout of Derek's text messages about landing the Morrison girl. The other 66 envelopes would contain something far more devastating. A complete dossier on Derek Mitchell. Financial records proving his fraud. Testimonials from his previous victims. Police reports documenting his pattern of deception. Every single person at that wedding would know exactly what kind of man Lily was marrying before the champagne toast. I sealed the final envelope as dawn broke through my kitchen window. In a few hours, Derek would get his wish. I would disappear from their lives forever. But not quietly. Never quietly. October delivered one of those crisp, golden mornings that make photographers weep with joy. I arrived at the venue at 6:30 a.m., carrying a simple white box that weighed far more than paper should. Helen met me at the service entrance, already dressed in her catering blacks, concern etched across her weathered face. "Catherine, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen cold feet, family drama, even a few runaway brides. But mysterious envelopes delivered at dawn." She shook her head. "You're scaring me." I handed her the box. One envelope at each place setting, exactly as discussed. "And Helen, when guests start opening them, just step back. Things are going to get complicated." "Complicated how?" "The kind that makes tomorrow's newspaper." She took the box, testing its weight. "Your daughter's going to hate you for this." The words hit harder than I expected. I blinked back sudden tears and straightened my shoulders. My daughter already hates me. She just doesn't know it yet. I spent the next 3 hours at the salon with Lily and her bridesmaids. The atmosphere was giddy, champagne flowing freely before noon, laughter bouncing off mirrors, excitement building like a storm about to break. Lily looked radiant in her preparation robe, her auburn hair being curled into elegant waves. She caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. "Mom, I'm terrified," she confessed while the makeup artist applied foundation. "What if something goes wrong?" I squeezed her shoulder, memorizing this moment before everything shattered. "Sometimes things go wrong for a reason, sweetheart. Sometimes it's the universe protecting us from bigger mistakes." She laughed, young and carefree. "You're being philosophical today. Save some of that wisdom for your mother of the bride speech tonight." "About that speech?" I hesitated. "I don't think I'll be giving one after all." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Mom, you've been working on that for months. Plans change, honey. You'll understand soon enough." The ceremony began at 4 p.m. in the garden behind the Riverside Country Club. Lily walked down the white carpet on my brother Tom's arm. Her father wasn't alive to give her away. She was breathtaking in vintage lace, a veil trailing behind her like captured moonlight. For one terrible, beautiful moment, I almost stopped everything. Almost stood up during the objections portion and told everyone the truth right there. Almost gave Lily a chance to process privately instead of publicly. Then I saw Derek's face as he watched her approach. That practiced smile, empty and calculating. The smile of someone who'd already counted his winnings. The minister's words washed over me. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." But I heard different words. "Dearly deceived, we are gathered to witness a con artist marry his final mark. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. I remained seated, hands folded in my lap. The truth would speak for itself soon enough. "You may kiss the bride." Derek pulled Lily into his arms for a passionate kiss that earned applause from the assembled guests. As they walked back down the aisle together, Lily caught my eye and blew me a kiss. I smiled and waved, knowing it might be the last time she'd look at me with love instead of betrayal. Cocktail hour passed in a blur of small talk and congratulations. Guests mingled on the terrace, sipping signature cocktails and admiring the view. I made polite conversation with relatives, accepting compliments about the beautiful ceremony and elegant reception. "Catherine, you must be so proud," gushed my sister-in-law Dorothy. "Lily looks absolutely stunning, and Derek seems like such a catch." "He certainly caught something," I murmured, watching waiters begin seating guests for dinner. At 6:30, the dinner bell chimed. Guests made their way to assigned tables, and I took my seat at the head table directly across from the newlyweds. Derek and Lily were busy posing for photos, completely oblivious to what waited at every place setting. Small white envelopes rested beside each folded napkin, innocent as snowfall. The MC tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our meal, the bride's mother has requested that you open the small gift at your place setting. A personal thank you from the Morrison family for sharing this special day." 67 hands reached for 67 envelopes simultaneously. and my daughter's perfect wedding day began to implode. The first reaction came from table 4, where Derek's college fraternity brothers sat. Jason Torres went pale, his eyes widening as he scanned the documents. Then a sharp gasp from table 7, Lily's sorority sisters, their giggles dying mid-laugh. Within 60 seconds, the reception hall had fallen into the kind of silence usually reserved for funerals. Derek noticed first. His head swiveled around the room, taking in shocked faces and whispered conversations. When his gaze finally landed on me, I raised my champagne glass in a mock toast. "Mom!" Lily's voice was uncertain, confused by the sudden atmospheric shift. "What's happening?" Everyone looked so strange. I watched as Jason stood up from table 4, envelope clutched in his white-knuckled fist. He walked toward our table with deliberate steps, his face flushed with rage. "Derek," Jason's voice carried across the suddenly silent room. "We need to talk. Right now." "Jay." "Hey, buddy." Derek's voice cracked slightly, but he maintained his smile. "Can it wait? Kind of in the middle of my wedding here." Jason held up the papers he'd pulled from his envelope. "According to this, you owe me $14,000 from that investment opportunity you pitched last summer. The crypto mining operation that was supposed to triple my money in 6 months." Lily's face drained of color. "What investment opportunity?" Before Derek could answer, another voice rang out from table 9. "He owes me $9,000. Rebecca Walsh, one of Lily's college friends, stood up. "For the photography studio we were supposedly starting together." Then table 6. $7,000 for the restaurant franchise that never existed. Table 3. $5,000 for tech startup equipment that was just an empty warehouse. The voices multiplied, a crescendo of anger and betrayal. Derek's victims stood one by one, clutching their envelopes like evidence in a trial. And in a way, that's exactly what this was. Lily spun in her chair, trying to process what she was hearing. Her white dress rustled with each frantic movement, the sound like tearing paper. "This is insane." Derek stood up, his composure finally cracking. "Catherine, what have you done?" I set down my fork and met his gaze calmly. "I granted your wish, Derek. You wanted me to disappear from your lives. So I'm taking my resources with me." I pulled out the real estate listing and slid it across the table to Lily. "Including the lake house you thought you were inheriting. You sold our wedding gift." Lily's voice rose to a near shriek. "How could you? It was never your wedding gift, sweetheart. It was my house. My decision." I turned to face her fully. "Just like it was your decision to ask me to disappear from your life." Confusion flickered across her features. "I never asked you to disappear." "What are you talking about?" Derek grabbed Lily's arm. "We need to leave. Now." This is obviously some kind of breakdown. But Lily shook him off, her eyes locked on mine. "Mom, explain." Now. I looked around the room where 67 wedding guests held documented proof of Derek's crimes. Some were already on phones, probably calling lawyers. Others were comparing notes, realizing the scope of his manipulation. "Last night," I said quietly, "your husband told me the perfect wedding gift would be my permanent disappearance. He said it was your idea, Lily. That you were too polite to tell me yourself." "That's not true." Lily's voice cracked. "I never said that." I watched realization hit her. The betrayal wasn't just financial. Derek had been systematically turning us against each other, isolating her from the one person who might have protected her. "Tell her, Derek," I said. "Tell my daughter exactly what you said to me in the library." But Derek was backing away from our table, panic replacing his practiced charm. More guests approached with envelopes, demanding answers, threatening lawsuits. "This is harassment." Derek's voice went shrill. "My father's law firm will destroy you for this libel." That's when Judge Morrison stood up from table 12, his voice booming with authority. "Your father's firm disowned you 2 years ago for embezzlement, son. It's all documented here." He held up his envelope. In excruciating detail. The room erupted in gasps and angry mutters. Lily buried her face in her hands as her perfect wedding collapsed around her like a demolished building. And I sat there, calmly cutting into my salmon, watching the man who'd tried to erase me get exactly what he deserved. By 8 p.m., the reception hall looked like a crime scene. Police had arrived after multiple fraud reports. Wedding cake sat untouched while investigators took statements. Lily's makeup was destroyed by tears, black streaks staining her vintage lace dress. "Mrs. Morrison, we'll need a statement from you as well." Detective Patterson approached our table, notebook in hand. "Of course, Detective. Though I'm more witness than suspect." Lily finally looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. "Mom, how long have you known?" I set down my coffee and chose words carefully. "I started having concerns 6 months ago. Inconsistencies in Derek's stories. References to deals that didn't add up. So I hired an investigator." "You investigated my fiancé?" "I protected my daughter." I pulled out the full folder Marcus had compiled, 6 months of surveillance, financial records, police reports. "Derek Mitchell isn't just broke, Lily. He's been running schemes since college." Detective Patterson examined the folder, eyebrows rising with each page. "This is remarkably thorough, Mrs. Morrison. Professional-grade work. I hired the best." Lily grabbed the folder, horror growing as she scanned documents. Restraining orders from ex-girlfriends. Theft charges that were quietly dropped. A pattern of predation going back years. "Why didn't you just show me this?" Her voice was small, broken. I laughed bitterly. "Could I have? You've been so infatuated you stopped returning my calls half the time. When's the last time we had a real conversation, Lily? One where you didn't rush off to meet him?" She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. "We both knew I was right. The night before your wedding," I continued. Derek made his position crystal clear. He wanted me erased. Not just distant, completely gone. "And he said you wanted it too." "It wasn't true," Lily whispered. "I swear, Mom. I know that now. But last night I believed him. I felt tears threatening. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Thinking my own daughter wanted me to vanish." Before Lily could answer, commotion erupted near the exit. Derek was trying to leave, but guests had formed a human barrier. Jason from Table 4 still clutched his envelope, his face purple with rage. "You're not going anywhere until we figure out how to get our money back. This is kidnapping." Derek protested, though his voice lacked conviction. "Actually," Detective Patterson interjected, "I can detain you. Derek Mitchell, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and theft." The Miranda rights were read in front of 67 wedding guests, a string quartet, and 3 traumatized catering staff. Derek's face cycled through emotions: shock, anger, fear, calculation. As he searched for escape routes, his eyes landed on Lily. For a moment, his mask slipped completely. What I saw wasn't love or regret. It was something cold and predatory. The look of a con artist whose mark had finally wised up. "Lily," he called as handcuffs clicked into place. "Don't let her poison you against me. This is all a misunderstanding." But Lily stood slowly, smoothing her ruined dress. When she spoke, her voice was stronger than I'd heard in months. "Derek, did you tell my mother I wanted her to disappear?" The question hung like a blade. Derek's lawyer training kicked in. He opened his mouth to deflect, spin, manipulate one last time. Lily held up her hand. "Don't. For once, just tell me the truth." Derek looked around, calculating odds. Then apparently decided honesty was his only remaining play. "Yes, I said that. But Lily, you have to understand, she was interfering with our relationship. We needed space without her constant involvement." "Constant involvement," Lily repeated slowly. "Like paying for this wedding? Like the lake house? Like the monthly checks you had me ask her for when your trust fund got cut off?" The room went silent again. This was news even to me. Derek's face flushed. "That was temporary, just until my legal situation." "What legal situation?" Lily's voice was deadly quiet. Detective Patterson consulted his notes. "Your husband is being sued by his father's firm for embezzling client funds." His trust fund was frozen pending criminal investigation. Lily looked from Derek to me to the detective, pieces finally falling into place. So the money I asked my mother for was to support you, to support us, our future together. But Lily was staring at her engagement ring now. 2 carats of diamond probably purchased with money I'd unknowingly provided. "Get him out of here," she whispered. As Detective Patterson led Derek away, Lily turned to face me with tears streaming down her cheeks. The reception hall was still full of people, but in that moment, we were completely alone. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm so sorry. The cleanup after the destroyed wedding took 3 hours." By 11 p.m., Lily and I sat alone in the empty reception hall, still in our formal wear, sharing wine from what should have been her honeymoon collection. "I can't believe I was so stupid," Lily said for the 12th time, staring at her engagement ring. "You weren't stupid, sweetheart. You were in love. Or what you thought was love." I refilled both glasses. Derek is good at what he does. Manipulation is a skill he's perfected. Lily finally pulled off the ring and set it on the table. How much money did I give him through those requests? I'd been dreading this question. Over the past 8 months, about $42,000. Her face crumpled. "Oh God, Mom, how can I ever? You don't need to pay me back. That money protected you, even if neither of us realized it." I took her hand. "But Lily, this isn't just about money. What concerns me is how you lost yourself in that relationship. When did it start?" she asked quietly. "When did I stop being me?" I thought about the past 2 years, watching my confident daughter gradually transform into someone who second-guessed every decision, who constantly sought Derek's approval. "Remember your promotion last year? Corner office, 30% raise." "Yeah, I was so excited. What happened when you told Derek?" Her face darkened. "He said I was getting too ambitious, that focusing on my career would hurt our relationship. He wanted me to turn it down." "Which you did." "Which I did," she confirmed miserably. "I told myself it was compromise, that marriage meant sacrifice. But did Derek ever sacrifice anything for you?" Lily considered this, then shook her head. "No. Every compromise was mine. Every adjustment was my responsibility." She looked at me with fresh tears. "I don't even recognize who I became." The janitor appeared to clean up, so we moved to the parking lot steps. October air was crisp, and Lily shivered in her sleeveless dress. I draped my shawl around her shoulders. "Mom, can I ask something strange? After today, nothing sounds strange. Are you happy this happened? I know it was horrible, but are you relieved Derek is gone?" I considered carefully. "I'm relieved you're safe. I'm sorry you had to be humiliated publicly to discover the truth. But am I glad he's gone?" "Yes." Lily nodded. "I think I am too." "Is that terrible? Shouldn't I be heartbroken?" "The fact that you're not heartbroken tells you everything about what kind of relationship you were really in." We sat in comfortable silence, watching catering trucks drive away. Tomorrow this country club would host another event, and tonight would become just another story in their collection of disasters. "What happens now?" Lily asked. "I gave notice on my apartment because we were moving in together. All my stuff is at his place. You'll come home. Your room is exactly as you left it. After everything I put you through? After choosing him over you so many times." I turned to look at my daughter fully. Even with ruined makeup and a wrinkled dress, she was beautiful. But more importantly, for the first time in months, she looked like herself. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by clarity. "Lily, you're my daughter. There's nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you. That's what real love looks like. It doesn't come with conditions or ultimatums." She started crying again, softer tears now. Relief, maybe. Recognition. "I love you too, Mom. And I promise, I'll never let anyone come between us again." As I drove us home through quiet streets, I found myself thinking about Marcus Webb, the investigator I'd hired 6 months ago. He'd done thorough work documenting Derek's crimes. But there was something else he'd discovered. Something I hadn't included in tonight's envelopes because it was still speculation. Derek Mitchell wasn't working alone. He had a partner, someone helping him identify and target vulnerable women from wealthy families. Someone who knew enough about victims' backgrounds to help craft the perfect persona for each conquest. And according to Marcus's preliminary investigation, Derek's partner had already selected his next target. Tomorrow, I'd be making calls to warn another mother about the charming young man her daughter recently started dating. Tonight, though, I was just grateful to have my own daughter back. But this story was far from over. Sunday morning brought coffee, aspirin, and the surreal task of explaining to extended family why their gift checks should be canceled before Derek could cash them. Lily sat at my kitchen table in an old bathrobe, fielding calls from friends who'd heard about the wedding disaster through social media. She was handling it with surprising grace, embarrassed but relieved, humiliated but healing. A knock at the door interrupted our third cup of coffee. Through the window, I saw Marcus Webb holding a manila folder, his expression grim. "Mrs. Morrison, I have additional information about Derek Mitchell that you and Lily should see." I invited him in, pouring coffee while Lily pulled the robe tighter. Marcus was a former detective who'd gone private after 30 years on the force, specializing in financial fraud cases. "First, congratulations on last night," Marcus said. "I heard through my contacts that Mitchell was arrested. Your envelope strategy was brilliant." "It felt necessary," I replied. "But you said you had more information?" Marcus opened his folder, spreading photographs across the kitchen table. "These were taken yesterday, before the wedding. I've been maintaining surveillance on Mitchell's activities, and I discovered something troubling." The photos showed Derek in what appeared to be a hotel room, talking with an older woman I didn't recognize. She was well-dressed, professional, with silver hair and expensive jewelry. "Who is that?" Lily asked, leaning forward. "Her name is Victoria Ashford. She's 58, recently widowed, worth approximately $5 million in life insurance and inherited assets." My blood ran cold. He was already planning his next victim? It gets worse. Marcus pulled out more documents. Victoria has a daughter, 26 years old, works as a teacher, recently ended a long-term relationship. Her name is Hannah, and she's been dating someone new for the past 2 months. He showed us Instagram photos. Hannah Ashford with a handsome young man at romantic locations. Dinner at expensive restaurants. Weekend getaways. Captions about new love and fresh starts. Lily gasped. "That's not Derek in the photos." "No, it's his partner, Tyler Brooks, age 30. Similar background of fraud and manipulation. They work as a team. One targets the daughter, the other eventually targets the mother. They've been running this operation for almost 4 years. I stared at the evidence, feeling sick. They're professional predators. The worst kind, Marcus confirmed. They identify recently divorced or widowed women with adult daughters, then split up to work both targets simultaneously. The daughter provides access and information about the mother's finances, usually without realizing it. The mother gets isolated from family who might interfere. Lily had gone pale. "That's exactly what Derek did to us. Separated me from you. Made me feel like I had to choose." "Classic manipulation," Marcus agreed. But here's the critical issue. Mitchell getting arrested doesn't stop Brooks from continuing his work on Hannah Ashford. If anything, it might accelerate his timeline. I stood and began pacing. "We have to warn them." "That's what I was hoping you'd say. But we need to be strategic. If we approach Hannah directly, Brooks will disappear and surface somewhere else with a new identity. We need evidence of criminal activity, not just suspicious behavior." "What do you need from us?" Lily asked. Marcus pulled out a business card. "Victoria Ashford belongs to the same country club where your wedding was held. Same social circles, same charitable organizations. If you could arrange an introduction, we might gather enough evidence to stop them before Hannah gets in too deep." I looked at the card, then at my daughter. "Lily, how do you feel about helping another family avoid what we just went through?" "I'm in," she said without hesitation. "No one else should experience what we did." Marcus gathered his materials. I'll continue surveillance on Brooks. But be careful. If they suspect we're on to them, they could become dangerous. After he left, Lily and I sat processing what we'd learned. Derek wasn't just a common criminal. He was part of an organized operation targeting vulnerable families. Mom, Lily said quietly, I keep thinking about something Derek did when he was arrested. He looked around the room like he was calculating something. What do you mean? I asked. I think he was memorizing faces, guest list, addresses, contact information. Everyone at that wedding is now a potential target for whatever comes next. The realization hit like ice water. The envelopes I'd used to expose Derek had also provided him with a detailed map of our family's social network. Every person at that reception was now vulnerable to retaliation or recruitment. I reached for my phone. We need to call Detective Patterson, and then we need to start warning people. As I dialed, I found myself thinking about the irony. 24 hours ago, I'd been a mother protecting her daughter from a dangerous man. Now I was apparently leading a campaign to protect an entire community from a criminal network. But if that's what it took to keep other families safe, then that's exactly what I was going to do. Monday morning found me in the most unlikely place imaginable. The visitor's room at County Jail, sitting across from Derek Mitchell, trying not to let disgust show on my face. Detective Patterson had arranged the meeting after I'd explained Marcus's discoveries about the criminal partnership with Tyler Brooks. Catherine. Derek offered that familiar smile as he settled into the plastic chair. Orange jumpsuit instead of expensive suits, but his confidence remained intact. I have to say, I'm surprised you wanted to see me. I'm full of surprises, I replied, studying his face for cracks in the facade. How are you adjusting to jail food? It's temporary. My lawyer says the charges won't stick. Too much circumstantial evidence, not enough direct proof. He leaned forward conspiratorially. Besides, most of those people at your little wedding disaster already got their money back. Insurance fraud, you know. They're probably thanking me by now. I kept my expression neutral, though internally I was taking notes. Derek clearly didn't know Marcus had spent months documenting his crimes with bank records and recorded conversations. The evidence was anything but circumstantial. Interesting, I said. What about Tyler Brooks? Is he helping with your legal defense? For just a moment, Derek's smile faltered. Subtle, a slight tightening around his eyes. But it confirmed my suspicion. He hadn't expected me to know about his partner. I'm not sure who you mean, he said carefully. Of course you do, Derek. Tall, dark hair. Works the daughter while you work the mother. Currently dating Hannah Ashford while you were supposed to be targeting her mother, Victoria. Derek's mask slipped completely. The charming facade disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. You've been busy, Catherine, but you're playing a dangerous game. Am I? Because from where I sit, you're the one in the orange jumpsuit. This is temporary, he repeated, voice carrying an edge now. And when I get out, I'll remember who tried to interfere with my business. I leaned back, genuinely amused. Are you threatening me, Derek? Because that seems unwise considering I'm wearing a wire, and this conversation is being recorded. Derek's eyes widened. He instinctively looked around the visitor's room as if searching for hidden cameras. Detective Patterson had indeed wired me for this conversation, hoping Derek would incriminate himself or provide information about Brooks. Relax, I said, enjoying his discomfort. I'm not here to trap you. I'm here to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? I pulled out a manila folder. Complete information about Tyler Brooks's operation. His real name, his targets, his methods, his criminal history. Everything needed to stop him before he destroys another family. Derek stared at the folder but didn't reach for it. And in exchange, I want you to disappear, Derek. Permanently. No more schemes. No more targeting vulnerable women. No more destroying families for profit. Take whatever plea deal the prosecutor offers. Serve your time quietly. And when you get out, find a legitimate way to make a living. And if I refuse, I opened the folder and showed him the first page, a detailed timeline of criminal activities going back 8 years, including several cases that had never been prosecuted. Then this information goes to every law enforcement agency in the country, along with your photograph and complete criminal profile. You'll never be able to run another scheme because every potential victim will have been warned about you. Derek studied the documents with growing alarm. Where did you get this? I told you, I'm full of surprises. Professional investigators can uncover remarkable things when properly motivated. I closed the folder. So what's it going to be, Derek? Cooperation and a chance to start over, or a lifetime of looking over your shoulder? For the first time since I'd met him, Derek Mitchell looked genuinely defeated. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the expression of a man who'd finally encountered an opponent he couldn't manipulate. What happens to Tyler if I give you what you want? That's not your concern anymore. Your concern is deciding whether you want to spend the next 20 years in and out of prison, or whether you want to accept responsibility and try to build something legitimate. Derek was silent for a long moment, weighing options. Finally, he looked up with something approaching respect. You're not what I expected, Catherine. Most people would have just walked away after exposing me. Most people don't have daughters they're trying to protect. And most people haven't spent 52 years learning that sometimes the only way to deal with predators is to fight back harder than they expect. All right, he said finally. I'll tell you everything about Tyler's operation. But I want something in addition to the plea deal. What? I want to talk to Lily. I want to apologize properly, not through lawyers or intermediaries. Just 5 minutes to tell her I'm sorry and that none of this was her fault. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation. But for the first time since I'd known him, Derek Mitchell appeared to be telling the truth. I'll ask her, I said. But Lily makes that decision, not me. If she says no, you accept it and move on. Agreed. I stood and collected my folder. Detective Patterson will be in touch about the details. And Derek, if you're lying to me about wanting to change, if this is just another scheme to buy time, I will make it my personal mission to ensure you never hurt another family. As I walked away, I heard him call after me. Catherine, for what it's worth, I think Lily is lucky to have you as her mother. I didn't turn around to respond, but I found myself thinking that if Derek Mitchell really was capable of change, maybe there was hope for anyone. The question was whether Tyler Brooks would be as easy to stop, or if he'd prove even more dangerous than his now imprisoned partner. Tuesday evening, Lily and I sat in Victoria Ashford's elegant living room, surrounded by family photos and expensive artwork, watching a woman's world collapse in real time. The introduction had been easier than expected. Victoria and I had mutual friends from the country club, and a casual mention of recent challenges with young men who aren't what they seem had opened the door to a deeper conversation. You're telling me Tyler has been lying about everything? Victoria asked, hands shaking as she reviewed documents Marcus had provided. His job, his family background, his feelings for Hannah? I'm afraid so, I replied gently. And more importantly, Mrs. Ashford, we believe you were his ultimate target. Hannah was just the access point. Victoria was clearly intelligent, retired college professor, active in community organizations. Nobody's fool under normal circumstances. But love, even secondhand love through a beloved daughter, could blind anyone to danger. Hannah is going to be devastated, Victoria whispered. She's been talking about introducing him formally next weekend. She thinks he might propose soon. Lily leaned forward from her place on the sofa. Mrs. Ashford, I know exactly how she feels. 3 days ago, I was convinced I was marrying the love of my life. The humiliation is temporary, but the relief of discovering the truth before making a permanent mistake? That lasts forever. But how do we tell her? How do I explain that I allowed a stranger to investigate her boyfriend without her knowledge? That was the delicate part. Hannah was currently at work, unaware that her mother was learning about Tyler's criminal history. According to Marcus's surveillance, Tyler was planning to escalate their relationship this week. possibly proposing as a way to accelerate access to Victoria's finances. "We have a plan," I said carefully, "but it requires your cooperation and Hannah's presence here tomorrow night." I explained the strategy Marcus had developed. Rather than confronting Hannah directly with evidence, we would arrange for her to discover the truth herself. Tyler would be invited to dinner at Victoria's house, where hidden cameras would record his responses to carefully crafted questions. When his lies became obvious, Hannah would see for herself what kind of man she'd been dating. "It feels manipulative," Victoria said. "It is manipulative," I agreed. "But Tyler Brooks has been manipulating your daughter for months. Sometimes the only way to expose a manipulator is to use their own tactics against them." Victoria studied photographs of her daughter with Tyler, their faces bright with apparent happiness. What if Hannah chooses to believe him over the evidence? What if she's too attached to let go? Lily and I exchanged glances. "Then you support her while protecting yourself," Lily said. "You can't force someone to see the truth if they're not ready, but you can make sure they can't use you to fund their delusions." We spent the next 2 hours planning the confrontation, going over questions and scenarios, preparing for various ways Tyler might respond when cornered. Victoria proved to be an excellent strategist, suggesting subtle traps that would expose lies without seeming hostile. "He told Hannah he graduated from Stanford with a business degree," Victoria said, making notes. "But he's also claimed he grew up in Boston. Stanford graduates usually mention their geographic displacement. I'll ask him about adjusting to California weather during his school years." "Perfect," I said. "Marcus will have recording equipment set up by tomorrow afternoon. Remember, the goal isn't to humiliate Tyler in front of Hannah. It's to let her see who he really is." As we prepared to leave, Victoria caught my arm. "Catherine, why are you doing this? You don't know us. Your daughter is safe now. Why risk getting involved?" I thought about Derek's final words at the jail, about Lily being lucky to have me as her mother. Because 3 days ago, I was a woman whose daughter had been manipulated into rejecting her family. Today, I'm a mother whose child came home safely. The difference was information, Mrs. Ashford. The right information at the right time. And you think information will save Hannah? I think information gives people choices. What Hannah does with those choices is up to her. On the drive home, Lily was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. "Mom, are you sure we're doing the right thing? This feels like we're playing with people's lives." "We're giving Hannah the same gift someone gave us," I replied. "The truth. What would you want someone to do if they knew your boyfriend was a criminal and you didn't?" Lily considered this. "I'd want them to tell me, even if it hurt." "Exactly. And after tomorrow night, if Hannah chooses to stay with Tyler despite knowing what he is, that's her decision. But at least it will be an informed decision." As we pulled into our driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Brooks just booked flights to Miami for this weekend. 2 tickets. He's planning to run." I showed the message to Lily, who went pale. "He knows something. Someone must have warned him." I thought about Derek sitting in his jail cell, potentially making calls to unknown associates. Or someone getting nervous about their partner's arrest and deciding to cut losses. Either way, tomorrow's dinner at Victoria's house had suddenly become much more urgent. If Tyler Brooks disappeared with Hannah, it could be months before anyone tracked them down. By then, Victoria's fortune could be gone, and Hannah could be trapped in an abusive relationship hundreds of miles from home. "Change of plans," I said, reaching for my phone to call Victoria. "We're moving the dinner to tomorrow night, and we're going to make sure Tyler Brooks doesn't make it to that airport." As I dialed, I found myself thinking about how much my life had changed since Derek's cruel words 4 days ago. The woman who'd been told to disappear had instead become someone who refused to let other families face the same threats. And tomorrow night, Tyler Brooks would discover that his luck had finally run out. Wednesday evening, Victoria Ashford's dining room looked like a police sting operation disguised as a family dinner. Hidden cameras recorded from 3 angles, while Detective Patterson monitored from the kitchen, and Marcus watched from his car parked strategically across the street. Hannah had arrived 30 minutes early, nervous about introducing Tyler to her mother, but excited about their future together. She was lovely, blonde, late 20s, with the eager optimism of someone who'd finally found love after heartbreak. Tyler Brooks was everything Derek had described. Tall, handsome, charming, with the same practiced smile and confident demeanor that had fooled my daughter for months. He brought flowers for Victoria and had clearly researched her interests, making knowledgeable comments about the art collection and asking intelligent questions about her late husband's work. "So, Tyler," Victoria said as we moved through the appetizer course, "Hannah tells me you're from Boston originally. That must have been quite an adjustment, moving to California for Stanford." Tyler didn't miss a beat. Actually, the weather was the easy part. Coming from New England winters, California's sunshine felt like a gift. The real challenge was the cultural differences. West Coast business practices are much more casual than what I grew up with. Hannah smiled proudly at her boyfriend's smooth answer. Victoria and I exchanged glances. Tyler had passed the first test, which meant he was either telling the truth or an exceptionally skilled liar. "What was your major at Stanford?" I asked casually. My late husband always said their business program was top-notch. Finance, with a concentration in international markets. I wrote my senior thesis on emerging economies in Southeast Asia. Tyler reached for his wine glass, completely comfortable with the questioning. Strike two. According to Marcus's research, the real Tyler Brooks had never attended Stanford University. He was maintaining his lies effortlessly, even when given multiple opportunities to come clean. "How interesting," Victoria said. "My brother teaches economics at Stanford, Professor William Ashford. You might have had him for one of your courses." For the first time, Tyler hesitated. Barely perceptible. A slight pause before answering, a quick glance toward the exit. "I don't recall the name, but it's a large university. Different departments don't always overlap." Hannah jumped in to help. "Mom, Tyler graduated 9 years ago. Professor schedules change all the time." But Victoria pressed gently. "Oh, William's been there for 25 years. Department head for the last decade. Surely you would have encountered him if you were a finance major." Tyler's smile became forced. I'm starting to feel like I'm being interviewed for something. Is there a reason for all these questions about my college experience?" The tension ratcheted up several degrees. Hannah looked confused and embarrassed. Victoria maintained her pleasant demeanor, but I could see her hands trembling as she reached for her water glass. "I'm just making conversation," Victoria said. "Getting to know the man my daughter cares about." "Right," Tyler said, voice carrying an edge now. "Well, maybe we could talk about something else. Hannah mentioned you've been doing some traveling recently." It was a deflection, and a telling one. Tyler was trying to steer conversation toward Victoria's activities and lifestyle, gathering information about her assets. "Actually," I said, deciding to accelerate the timeline, "I'm more interested in your travel plans. Hannah mentioned you're thinking about a romantic getaway this weekend." Tyler's face went carefully blank. "We've discussed it. Nothing definite. Miami is lovely this time of year," I continued. "Great restaurants, beautiful beaches. Have you been there before?" Hannah turned to look at Tyler with surprise. "Miami? I thought we were talking about wine country for this weekend." "We discussed several options," Tyler said curtly. "I may have mentioned Miami as a possibility." "When?" Hannah asked. "We've been planning wine country for weeks. You even made restaurant reservations." "Plans change," Tyler snapped. "Sometimes opportunities arise that require flexibility." That's when Detective Patterson chose to enter from the kitchen, his badge clearly visible on his belt. "Excuse me for interrupting," he said politely. "Mr. Brooks, I wonder if I could have a word with you." Tyler stood so quickly his chair nearly toppled. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Detective Patterson, County Police. I believe you know my colleague, Detective Martinez from Miami. He's been looking for you regarding some financial irregularities involving elderly investors in Florida." Hannah gasped. Financial irregularities? Tyler, what is he talking about? Tyler looked around the room, escape routes cut off, his carefully constructed persona collapsing like a house of cards. This is entrapment. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you won't mind answering a few questions, Detective Patterson replied calmly. Starting with why you booked flights to Miami under 3 different names in the past 48 hours. 3 different names? Hannah stood up, staring at Tyler with growing horror. Tyler, what's going on? Who are you? That's when Tyler made his final mistake. Instead of trying to maintain innocence or explain the situation, he grabbed Hannah's arm roughly and started pulling her toward the door. We're leaving. Now. Don't listen to any of this, Hannah. These people are trying to poison you against me. Hannah jerked away from him. Don't touch me. And don't tell me what to listen to. She turned to face Detective Patterson. I want to know everything. Right now. Over the next 30 minutes, Hannah Ashford learned that the man she'd been dating for 3 months was actually Thomas Reynolds. No relation to Tyler Brooks, despite using that name. A career criminal with outstanding warrants in 5 states. His job in investment banking was a cover for targeting wealthy widows and their adult children. His romantic feelings were entirely fabricated, designed to provide access to her mother's fortune. The Miami flights were your exit strategy, Detective Patterson explained as Tyler, or Thomas, sat in handcuffs. After one final dinner with Mrs. Ashford, you were planning to convince Hannah to elope. The marriage would have given you legal access to family assets. By the time anyone realized what happened, you'd have disappeared with both Hannah and her mother's money. Hannah sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of her near miss. Victoria held her daughter's hand, both women crying tears of relief and residual fear. Mrs. Morrison, Detective Patterson said as Tyler was led away, your cooperation has been invaluable. We've connected this case to similar operations in 7 other states. Your investigation may have prevented dozens of families from being victimized. As police cars drove away and Marcus packed up his surveillance equipment, I found myself sitting in Victoria's living room with 3 other women who'd just experienced life-changing revelations. Hannah was embarrassed but grateful. Victoria was shaken but relieved. Lily was proud but thoughtful. Mom, Lily said as we prepared to leave, I keep thinking about something you said at the jail, about Derek being part of a larger operation. If Tyler and Derek were partners and they've been running schemes in multiple states, how many other women are out there right now believing they're in love with men who are planning to destroy their lives? I looked at Victoria, who was comforting Hannah, and thought about all the families who hadn't been lucky enough to have someone investigate their romantic predators. Probably more than we want to imagine, I said. So what do we do about it? Lily asked. That question had been forming in my mind since the moment Derek was arrested. What did we do with the knowledge we'd gained, the network we'd built, the expertise we'd developed? We start a foundation, I said finally. A resource for people who suspect their loved ones might be involved with romantic fraudsters. Investigation services, legal support, emotional counseling, public education about warning signs. Lily smiled. The Catherine Morrison Foundation for Family Protection? I laughed. Nothing that grandiose. Maybe just second chances. For families who need help starting over after discovering they've been victimized. Victoria looked up from comforting Hannah. I'd like to help fund that. And serve on the board if you'll have me. Hannah wiped her tears. I could volunteer. Use my experience to help other young women recognize manipulation tactics. I looked at these 3 women, strangers a week ago, now bound by shared trauma and unexpected triumph. And I realized that Derek's cruel demand for me to disappear had actually shown me exactly where I needed to be. Visible, present, fighting. 3 months later, Second Chances opened its doors in a modest office downtown, funded by the money I'd originally planned to give Derek and Lily as a wedding gift. Turned out betrayal could be surprisingly profitable when properly redirected. We'd helped 18 families avoid romantic fraud schemes, provided counseling services to 43 victims of financial manipulation, created an online database of known romantic predators that law enforcement agencies across the country now used as reference. Lily worked part-time for the foundation while rebuilding her marketing career, stronger and more confident than before. Victoria served on our board of directors and helped fund our legal advocacy program. Hannah had returned to teaching but volunteered on weekends, using her experience to help other young women recognize manipulation tactics. And me, I discovered that being told to disappear from someone's life had actually shown me how to make myself indispensable to the lives that mattered. Derek Mitchell was serving 8 years for fraud and conspiracy. Tyler Brooks, or Thomas Reynolds, his real name, got 15 years plus deportation to Canada, where he faced additional charges. Both men would be monitored for the rest of their lives, their criminal activities documented and shared with law enforcement worldwide. The best revenge, as it turned out, wasn't a dish served cold at all. It was a life lived with purpose, protecting others from the predators who thought they could destroy families for profit, turning pain into power, transforming a demand to disappear into a reason to be seen. Sometimes the perfect wedding gift isn't what the bride and groom expect to receive. Sometimes it's discovering who you really are when someone tries to erase you from existence. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who disappears isn't the one who was asked to leave. It's the person who thought they could make that demand in the first place. Derek wanted me gone. He wanted me erased, forgotten, powerless. Instead, I became unforgettable. I became the woman who stopped a criminal network. I became the mother who saved not just her own daughter, but dozens of others. I became exactly what he feared most, someone who refused to disappear. 3 days before what should have been my daughter's wedding anniversary, I received a letter. Prison postmark. Derek's handwriting. Catherine, I've had a lot of time to think. You were right about everything. I'm taking college courses, learning accounting the legal way. My parole hearing is in 6 years. When I get out, I'd like to volunteer for second chances if you'll have me. Former criminals helping prevent future crimes. Seems fitting. I'm sorry for what I put you and Lily through. You gave me something I didn't deserve, a second chance at becoming a decent human being. I won't waste it. Derek. I showed the letter to Lily, who read it twice before looking up at me with tears in her eyes. Are you going to respond? She asked. Eventually, I said. But not yet. He needs to earn it first. Actions, not words. Do you think he really changed? I thought about the man who'd smiled at me in that library and demanded I disappear. Then I thought about the database we'd built, the families we'd saved, the women who'd escaped manipulation because someone finally gave them the truth. I think people can change when the consequences become real enough, I said. Whether Derek actually does remains to be seen. But that's his journey now, not ours. Lily hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. Thank you for not disappearing. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to just walk away. I held my daughter close and felt something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe. Or purpose. Or simply the knowledge that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most important victories. I love you too, sweetheart. And I promise, I'm never disappearing. Not for anyone. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that subscribe button. Because every story matters. Every voice counts. And sometimes, the person you think is powerless turns out to be the most dangerous opponent you'll ever face. Thanks for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is in a situation where something doesn't feel right, trust that instinct. Reach out. Ask questions. Investigate. The truth might hurt, but it will always, always set you free.